Welcome to More Than Your Infertility podcast. I'm your host, Kristen Dillon Snyder, IVF mindset coach and IVF mom. Just like you, I know the impact riding the emotional roller coaster of infertility has on your life and how easy it is to be consumed by it. And I plan to support you, remind you, and teach you how to be more than your infertility while you're in the wait for your baby. If going through infertility is harder than you thought, taking longer than you thought, and impacting your emotional well-being, you're in the right spot. So no more waiting. Let's get started with this week's episode. This might feel like it's coming out of left field, but that would actually be the wrong sport. Because today I've got an American football analogy for you. So even if you're not a big football fan, stick around. This episode is for everyone going through infertility and especially IVF. Growing up in a football-loving family, I've seen my fair share of games, rooting for different teams depending on who I'm with. And I've done so for both the NFL and the college football world. Today, I'm talking about the parallels between football and infertility. Football players are dedicated to their sport. They talk about it, think about it, and it's a core part of their identity. They dream of reaching the Super Bowl, putting in blood, sweat, and tears to get to the playoffs and then the big game. And while it takes so much to make it to the Super Bowl, they still have to win the game to earn the trophy and coveted title. With the Super Bowl happening this weekend, I can't stop thinking about what it's taken for these players to get to this big game, as it's definitely not the beginning of their football journey. My guess is there is a history of years, wins and losses, injuries, trials and tribulations, and more. So in short, a long journey with highs and lows that can end with some life-changing outcomes. In fact, so many people will focus on who wins without even knowing what it really took to get to that point. Sounds like infertility, doesn't it? Because I come from a big football watching family, I grew up with a dad that rooted for the New York Giants and two older stepbrothers, one that rooted for the Denver Broncos and the other for the Minnesota Vikings. And when I moved to the South in 2009 from New York City, I learned that there was this whole other football world out there, the world of college football. So if we're not watching the USC Gamecocks, we are watching the Red Zone cheering on the Philadelphia Eagles or the Kansas City Chiefs, my husband's team and my stepson's team, respectively. Which means I have watched my fair share of football. And I often compare the infertility journey to football when talking with my clients. I promise it's not because Taylor Swift now goes to the games, which I love, by the way. So how is infertility related to football? Well, let's start with how much the players think about the game, how much they talk about football in their lives, whether publicly or just in their close network, how football is part of their identity. They have dreamed about going to and winning the Super Bowl for a very long time. Many of them since they were kids, and they have put in so much blood, sweat, and tears to get to the Super Bowl. And just in case you're not a football fan or not following Taylor Swift's boyfriend, at the time of this recording, the Super Bowl is happening this weekend, and there will be two teams playing for the Super Bowl championship. This is the part of the sport where no analyst, no pregame show, and no what-if scenario can fortune tell what will actually happen and who will win the game. They have played 18 games just this season before making it to the game. So this is the part of their journey where they have to trust that all they have done before this game will pay off and hope for the best, that all their teammates will know what they need to do and everything will fall into place. This is the part where they want to win so badly and they think about what they've been through to get to this place, which means 18 games this season, spring practice, all the years before, the NFL draft, their college career, the college admissions process and recruiting, and even playing in high school. And now they are one step closer to the Super Bowl ring and Super Bowl champion title and celebration. And one team will lose, and their Super Bowl dreams for this year will be over. It sounds a little familiar, doesn't it, when you hear it that way? So I like to say that the egg retrieval is like the playoffs. It's not the beginning of a football career or season. It's not the beginning of your infertility journey either. And the transfer is like the Super Bowl. The only difference here is that your 2-week wait isn't televised for everyone to see. There is so much that has happened, so much you've been through to get to these stages. years, tests, money, disappointment, hope, fear, weight fluctuations, surgeries, the passage of time, balancing what feels like a second career, second guessing yourself, and more. And there's also so much riding on it. And you can still feel like there's so far to go before you win the title of motherhood or can exhale. Preparing for your transfer feels like you're preparing for the Super Bowl. It's the game. It's the moment when you'll finally know if it works or doesn't. And it's normal for it to feel intense right now. So my fellow IVF warrior, if you're about to head into the playoffs or Super Bowl of your motherhood journey, you're probably asking yourself, what else can I be doing? What am I missing? What will make the difference? What can increase my odds of success? And the first thing I want to promise you is that you are not the only one asking these questions. But I'm curious, what do you think the football players are doing right now as they prepare for this weekend's game? Maybe we can learn a lesson from them and their experience. Do you think they're Googling, how do I win a Super Bowl? While saying it out loud might be funny, they might be. But what I do know is that they are prioritizing themselves and their physical health. They are getting rest, fueling their body. They're practicing their plays. They are prioritizing their mental health by minimizing distractions. They're listening to their favorite music and doing things they enjoy. They're most likely focusing on what's gotten them to this point. And I want to remind you that what you've done up until this point, just like in football, will play a bigger part than anything new you could possibly implement in the final hours. So if that's where you're at in your journey, take a few deep, slow breaths and answer these questions with me. How can you rest more? How can you fuel your body? How can you practice? For me, that sounds like reviewing your med schedule, the plan for the day of the egg retrieval or transfer, confirming who's driving, what time you're leaving, that you have everything you need, like your lucky fuzzy socks and the water bottle to fill up the bladder for your transfer. You have all the meds you need and you know the next steps. How can you minimize distractions? Where can you say no? Push things off until next month or delegate it? How can you care for your mental health? And while this is where I work with my clients, I can tell you two things. At this stage, the goal is to focus on where you're headed versus focusing on what you're afraid of happening. And the second thing is to remind yourself of all you've been through and sacrificed to get to this point. Remind yourself of every hurdle you've survived and made it through. Every little bit of your story and journey to here matters. And if you have some time before you make it to these pivotal moments of the IVF journey, meaning your egg retrieval or transfers in the near future, but not this week, remember that none of these players are doing this alone. They prioritize their health and work with the best of the best. They are part of a team and they have a team. They train, they recover, and I'm sure they make time for fun. So if you can imagine yourself being at the Super Bowl of infertility, what will you wish you had done, implemented, changed, and spent your time on? Whatever you came up with just now, don't wait. Do those things now. Because the people who have their retrievals and transfers this week wish they had more time to do those things. And there's one big difference with infertility in football that I feel the need to point out as a bit of a disclaimer. Because while there's only one winner of the Super Bowl each year, IVF is not a competition. Another woman's success with IVF does not actually impact your success, and there are more people who walk away successful from doing IVF than don't, which means your journey is not over. One of my clients was talking to her husband about her decision to want to do coaching with me, and he supported her decision, saying even winning players have coaches. So I looked into it, and Kobe Bryant and Tom Brady, among other athletes in other sports, worked year-round on their mental fitness, focusing on mindfulness, the impact of thoughts on emotions, and building up their self-belief and confidence. These are the same things I work on with my Hope Again coaching program. And if you know that infertility coaching is something you want to do and you want to build up your team of support through your infertility, then I invite you to apply for my coaching program at the link in the show notes. And while I am rooting for the Kansas City Chiefs this weekend, I am always rooting for you. And I am here to support you on the road to your Super Bowl of infertility win, the title of mother. Thank you for being a part of More Than Your Infertility. If today's episode resonated with you, please consider sharing it on social media or with a friend. Your support helps us reach more women on their infertility journey, empowering them to break free from the grip of infertility shame and rediscover their hope. And before we part ways, I have a small favor to ask. If you've enjoyed the podcast, kindly leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. Your feedback helps other women find this empowering community. Until next time, always remember, you are more than your infertility.